Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview today in the People in Fundraising weekly nonprofit podcast series. Today is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. It is 10 a.m. here in Utah, and I'm so excited to welcome our guest, Siran Hovhannisyan, to People in Fundraising, who is joining us from Armenia, where it is what time, Siran, your time?
It's 8 p.m.
Wow. All right. Quite a difference.
Right.
Yes. Well, Siran, thank you for saying yes to being on People in Fundraising. And I'm very much looking forward to learning about your work with NGO causes in Armenia and where else you have shared your expertise and your skills in the NGO space. So thank you for joining us today. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Thank you, team. It's a great pleasure to be one of the people who is participating in this series. So I am currently based in Armenia, and I am working as the grant making manager of Women's Fund Armenia, which is a small but very thriving, I would say, philanthropic organization here,
Great.
in its unique way.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have a few questions about Women's Fund Armenia, and we'll definitely give time to talk about that. If you could please take a few minutes at first, Siran, and tell us how you entered the NGO profession and maybe what it's like in Armenia.
Okay. Well, it's going to be long. Sorry.
That's okay.
It will take long because I didn't really start with NGO work and with nonprofit sector here in Armenia. I remember when I was really younger and I was studying my first profession, social worker as a social worker. I remember the first thing that I've learned in the university, sort of not directly, but indirectly, all my professors were bringing examples of NGOs and doing a great job in social work. So it was by default that whenever you graduate, you have to go and and get a job, a career in either in international NGO or local NGO.
Oh,
But
okay.
basically, yeah, with the examples that I have, it's really great to have these examples, basically.
Yeah.
And also, I must confess that when I was studying, it was the beginning of 2000. It was 2000, starting from 2006, and at this period of time, not really, the state institutions were not really ready to, to have this capacity to sort of give the social services to provide social services to all the people in need. So NGOs came in and started to work in it. So it's the idea that I sort of grew up with within university as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I started working within academia when I graduated. It was really great to have this, opportunity to work, even though it was an administrative work that I was doing at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then I switched to research and teaching as well,
Oh,
after a couple of years. Yes, and the one thing that I'm very proud of is being part of a unique academic research center in Armenia, which
mm.
was called Gender and Leadership Studies Center, which was actually one of the projects financed by USAID at that time. It was
Oh,
2012 and 2013. Yes, I was really thinking of mentioning this because this is something that we were actually privileged of having, because USAID was always supporting really, big projects, and one of these was the opening of the Center for Gender and Leadership Studies in Armenia in Yerevan State University, unprecedented, and I was one of the members of the team. Wow,
Whoa, awesome.
pursuing your dream. So
Yes.
yeah, it was really great, and yeah, and it was also together with the Arizona State University, which is like a mix of all the academic, huge universities and huge philanthropic organizations that we can imagine at that time, right? So
Yeah.
during my work at Gender Studies Center, it was a heavy, I would say, a heavy load of the work was basically connecting and cooperating with civil society organizations, with NGOs in Armenia.
Hmm.
And I think after that, I started to move on to the path of working in NGOs and started to be, involved more in program implementation. And also after that, later in my career, in grant making.
Okay.
Um, I think NGOs are this, for me, NGOs are the bridge between grassroots, movements and activism and the advocacy and all the, larger systems, that are that we have
Sure.
all over the world. So yeah, I really appreciate being part of the NGO sector.
Awesome.
What else? What else I can say? I'm just trying to come to the grant making part of my work.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned Yerevan State University. Was that where you earned your degree and then worked on the academic side before going into the programmatic?
Right,
Okay.
right. Yes, it was I had there my bachelor's and then my first master's degree. So it was
Wow.
all in, all dreams of, having social justice systems and transformative social institutions.
Sure.
Yeah, that's where I learned all these things.
Okay, wonderful.
Right. Yeah, so then I sort of switched into philanthropy sector from the other side as well, It's more like yeah, it's more like a you've been part of the receiving side and then you're going into the giving side. So
Yes.
it's actually a very fulfilling professional growth that I have had, I
Oh,
think. Yeah.
great. Wonderful. And was it hard, exciting, to go from the academic side to the programmatic side to the grant writing, or was it just really something new and something that you could learn a lot about and then apply?
Oh wow, it is exciting. I mean, I think I'm going to cause a massive jealousy by saying that I really love what I do.
Awesome.
Because you cannot really find people who really love their job,
Yes.
it's also a trend, right? To hate your job. Right, but I think I really I mean I appreciate where I am right now for sure, and this work actually also led me to go and study philanthropy and fundraising and philanthropic advising in more formal way in academia as well,
Oh,
because I'm already pursuing my third profession. Basically, it's philanthropic studies.
wow.
I'm actually doing a postgraduate diploma at University of Kent right now.
Wow.
Hello to all my lovely, amazing professors. If they're going to hear what I'm saying,
Yes.
actually. But yes, I mean, after that, I started also work in, write on writing and also a bit researching philanthropy a bit more, especially in the Armenian context, because
Mm,
when I see this, um, when I got exposed to the Western literature and the amount of the literature, the volumes of literature on philanthropy that exists in the American or European context. I mean, yes, we need to really work on that.
I
Yeah,
see. Yeah.
yeah.
And how long have you been doing the grant writing side of your profession, Siran?
It's not exactly grant writing part.
Oh,
If we
okay.
can, yeah, if we can just elaborate, if I can
Sure.
elaborate on that.
Yeah.
Um, my core professional expertise is basically grant making strategy and management.
Okay.
And I also started with my studies as well. After I've got into the academic studies again, I started to write about philanthropy and its different, aspects basically. And my professional expertise includes designing calls for proposals,
Mm.
reviewing, evaluating applications. I mean, all the whole spectrum of, grant making process.
Ah.
I also do the monitoring and evaluation parts and learning parts of all this, grant making process. I am a huge advocate and I love the approach of participatory grant making.
Mm.
Whenever is the case, I am always there. I am also working on developing funding strategies for the organization and also trying to help in that direction also other NGOs that I work with. And my favorite part is, this collaboration and relationship building with all the grantee partners that we have.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, basically all over Armenia, because as I have said before, one of the positive sides of having a small country is that you can have a huge network in a
Sure.
very short time period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's exciting. That's really interesting. And with the grant making strategy and management that you focus on as your core responsibilities, I'd love to hear how that relates to your work with Women's Fund Armenia and what can you share about the fund itself, please?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I'm always excited to talk about that, you know. About the work of the fund as well. Women's Fund Armenia is the I can openly say this. It's the only feminist fund in Armenia, which is
Oh,
dedicated specifically to fund and support not only financially but in with other aspects to women's rights organization here in Armenia and also gender justice initiatives.
okay.
I think it's not only about the Armenian fund, but also all the women's funds are having this very distinctive aspect of their work is that we are not working only with registered organizations, but we can also fund initiatives that don't want to have any registration. We can work with individuals. With this is the flexibility also that we really want to keep in our work.
Mm,
Right. Yes. So I think the fund it really plays a crucial role in the Armenia's civil society landscape because it focuses on supporting grassroots feminist activism, and these funds, women's funds all over the world, and including the one that I work with, is these funds are actually movement led and also movement based. So you are
mm.
also part of the feminist movement that you're working with. So it's actually also an identity sort of thing, but yeah, we're trying not to separate ourselves from the movements that we work with.
I see.
Yeah.
So there are other women's funds located in other nations.
Oh
Is that
yes. Oh yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
do you meet or convene with other NGO leaders and kind of get insights from what's working in their countries or not, and what you can apply to
Right.
Armenia and vice versa?
Oh yeah, I would say there are plenty of, amazing women's funds around the world.
Hmm.
And they also are part of the network called Prospera, which is the network of women's funds around the world.
Okay.
There are South American and Latin American chapters, there are African chapters, there are also Asian chapters, and we all European chapters as well. So all work together and we cooperate. So we know, yeah, who is standing where and who is working on what, how we're trying to, find funding, for different organizations and groups that are in need right now, especially in terms of also, backlash against women's organizations and also gender justice around the world. I mean, one of the example is also the US that is shortening, and cutting off the main fundings for women's organizations and feminist organizations, but not only in the US. I think the scenarios and all, practices are being implemented in different places in Western Europe, in Eastern Europe, in South Caucasus, everywhere basically. So yeah,
Yes.
and we also see that the governments are getting more conservative and more inclining towards right, far right, right governance.
Yes.
So yeah, we're trying to also understand how we're going to work on that too. Yeah.
Yeah. I know in Utah, our state legislature just had their session about 2 months long, and they just eliminated all the funding for a women's organization in the state. Like there was no
Right. Yeah.
discussion, there was no counterpoints, no
Mm-hmm.
appeal for need. It was just like, yeah, we're not going to fund that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very timely that yes, this is a global trend, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
restricting rights and funding for equal justice.
But also on the other side, I mean, what I love were in the work with Women's Fund, is that it's not only about funding, it's also about, a wide spectrum of activities, including, network building, resilience, and also, accompanying this capacity building and creating this platform for feminist solidarity for the people who really for all the activists basically who are trying to find these platforms and trying to reach out, to each other and
Yeah.
build something together, keep the movement going. Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's easy to, shut down everything and just say that no, these are dangerous times and we cannot do anything.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And how long has the Women's Fund Armenia been operating?
Well, it started unofficially, it started in 2017. I remember, I mean, I was from the beginning with the fund. And I think I remember very well when we were doing this feasibility study, whether we need a women's fund in Armenia as a local, fund that is doing fundraising for local organizations and groups. And yeah, unofficially, it started in 2017, but from 2018, we already had first, grantee partners. I remember there were like two people maybe,
Okay.
but we are also a very small group. And before it was like three people or something.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so yeah, so yeah, we were working very hard to, accommodate everything for these two grantee partners. Yeah, and then it started. It started, and I mean, I really have to, praise my wonderful colleagues at the fund who are doing all the fundraising and basically they're the co-founders of the fund. I mean, they're doing amazing job in terms of, keeping the connections and networks around the world, and also doing huge work for fundraising, especially right now that all the nonprofit sector and philanthropy sector is facing uh, a lot of problems actually coming from
Sure.
the inside as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're able to talk about any of those challenges within Armenia, what might some of those be?
Um, for the women's rights organizations, maybe I can, I mean, for overall for the civil society and for the NGOs especially, one of the challenges is that in Armenia, civil society and the acceptance of civil society is very politicized. Of course, it has to be,
Hmm.
but also the way it is politicized and manipulated in different contexts is very, very sort of dangerous also for the future of civil society
Hmm.
because, you know, all the backlash against women's rights organizations, especially, started well, basically many years ago already, but with not really feeling comfortable of having different laws, including gender equality law, including anti-discrimination law, including conventions on stopping the violence against women. I mean, these things actually have been manipulated by different groups in Armenia, and then a really challenging backlash started against civil societies, especially the progressive civil societies, because the problem is that, we don't have this division between civil society, right? You can speak about very conservative things and you can speak about very progressive things. And right now, I think it's a worldwide thing that it's not about being progressive or conservative. It's about having your opinion and your agenda and you are pushing it forward, right? So
Exactly.
it's becoming even more difficult. I mean, yeah, for all of us to work on the problems that we are trying to, eliminate in our societies. Right. I think the yeah, politicized manipulation is one of the challenges.
Hmm.
Of course, financial support is the, well, I guess number one challenge for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, conflict-related situation and peace-related situation. Armenia and Azerbaijan are trying to, negotiate the peace treaty right now. Uh, Nobody knows what is going to happen, but
Right.
it's actually a very difficult and very sort of uncertain situation because you never know what is going to happen next. And we are also bordering with Iran right now. And we know what is
Right.
happening, what horrible things are happening in Iran right now.
Yes.
Right. I mean, yeah. So civil society is always in the middle of all the things happening. Right.
All of that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And, Armenia has been newly independent for about 35 years. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. After the collapse of Soviet Union, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So a very ancient, beautiful culture. I had friends growing up in Massachusetts who are of Armenian ancestry. And so, yes, society, Armenian society has been around for millennia. And as a nation state, it's been independent, then part of the Soviet Union, and now thankfully independent again for a few decades. So I imagine that it just takes time for, in this case, NGO work to really get stabilized and grow from there. And yet there are these challenges that you've mentioned, Siran.
Right. And NGOs have always been, in the middle of the events happening in Armenia because NGOs were the ones who were pushing, peace agendas, human rights agendas, this and that. I mean, everything. And
Yeah,
if you think, I think the latest, developments in Armenia, I mean, positive developments in terms of politics as well, maybe happened through because of the work of all the years of work of civil society here in
yeah,
Armenia. Right.
that's great.
Sometimes I use civil society and sometimes NGOs, and I think I will be hugely criticized for that. I know, I'm sorry. I'm just
Oh.
not, I know. I know the difference. No worries.
Yes. Well, on that comment, Siran, I'm curious, and I think a lot of our global audience would find it fascinating for you to just briefly describe how NGO work is viewed by the average person in Armenia. So, for example, in some countries, civil needs emergencies are funded through either massive religious organizations, either on the ground or internationally, or primarily funded by government agencies. to support people and programs in need. So if you could just talk about what does the average person think about NGO work? Are they afraid that it will be a conduit for external or like specifically American influence?
Mhm.
Do they want to say, well, we really just want Armenians to help Armenia, for example, like anything along those lines?
That's a very good, so excuse me, that's a very good question actually, because public perception about NGOs in Armenia is pretty much divided and it's actually mixed. On the one hand, civil society organizations, I mean, they played uh, significant role in areas such as human rights advocacy, social services, democratic development in Armenia. And many NGOs are also recognized for their expertise and for addressing, many different issues in Armenia that are not fully covered by state institutions,
Mm,
subjectively and objectively.
okay.
But on the other hand, there is the issue that I've tackled, before in when we were discussing in general what is happening also with women's NGOs. I mean, NGOs here in Armenia are also often perceived as highly dependent on international funding,
Oh,
which is giving a lot of, climate. I mean, the change in climate of perceiving NGOs is only from the positive side is really
yeah,
being harder.
sure.
Uh, yeah, because most of the financial support for the NGOs in Armenia is coming from the outside, from external donors, from international donors, from from uh, also government of is mostly of European countries. I mean, through
Mm,
their bilateral relationships with Armenia. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's really divided. So basically, it's very easy to manipulate this idea that wow, you're externally funded, you're paid by foreign agencies to implement something here in Armenia, and which is the case when it comes to backlash against this organizations, especially those who work on human rights issues, on the
sure.
spectrum of human rights issues. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're just you're just funded externally, so you are serving this external agendas.
Right.
Uh, but on the other hand, I can see that how hard NGOs here are working. They are trying to put aside some, even minor inconveniences that happen. They are trying to avoid them and cooperate with the government and have influence on policies, on laws, especially the ones related to human rights and, gender equality and this and that and climate change, everything.
Oh,
So you can see that the ones who are pushing agendas that are really important, it's human rights, it's climate change, it's all sorts, all these topics that we can actually count. Um, these are the NGOs that are pushing these important
right.
issues. And if you are just now, if we are not talking about these issues, most of the cases, governments really not really reacting to that if they don't have any international commitments, right?
I see.
This is the
Yeah.
case for all the places. I mean, all the countries. It's not really, yeah, something new
Yeah.
that I'm exploring in here.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I mean, they're working hard, but also being perceived as, sort of, yeah, it's mixed. It's very divided and complex in terms of understanding what NGOs are doing. You can even have like jokes about NGOs, like they are having, their funding, and you never see how it impacts the everyday life of people. I mean, we
Mm,
know that we as nonprofit people, sector people from the sector, people from philanthropy, we know that you cannot just do one I don't know project in one of the regions and expect that this woman's life has changed immensely,
right.
in one, yes, in one day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how I think public really expects from NGOs to be more communicative in terms of, showing and demonstrating how this work really affects and impacts people's everyday lives. I think,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you. Yeah. And I was thinking, Siran, a few moments ago, you mentioned bilateral relations and international organizations, and even like, Armenia is not yet part of the European Union. But even within the European Union, you have very distinct differences of opinion, and they're part of this overlapping transnational organization, and yet there are certain countries that operate very
Right.
differently as it relates to gender equality and environmental issues, even within that international body.
I mean, yeah, I think it's only the first steps that Armenia is taking to actually sort of associate with the politically associate with the European with the EU with the European Union.
Yes.
But I think it's also part of the political will and the direction and external politics that the government sorry, the government is trying to take. I mean, to what relationships we really want to have with different, global powers, basically.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there are a lot of, there is a lot of support from different European countries, from different international, NGOs. But I think what civil society is also concerned with right now is that Armenia, it's an election year in Armenia.
Oh, okay.
Right. In June, we're expecting the new elections. And yeah, I think we all of us are waiting for the news. Like, June.
Yeah.
June is
Wow.
the deadline.
Okay. Wow.
We'll
It's
see.
coming up.
Right. I mean, yeah, and it's also, it's it's another pressure on NGOs again, like
Yeah.
whether you want to keep your independence, or you want to support the process of democratic transitions in the country. What is the position of of civil society is going to be in this process?
Yeah.
This is another pressure. This is another challenge for local civil society.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to follow.
Yeah.
I have just a last question here, Siran. It's not on the questionnaire, but I'm just curious, what excites you about your future career endeavors as you finish your diploma from the University of Kent and continue working? Are there projects, um, conferences, speaking engagements, things that you would like to pursue?
Right. Oh, wow. That's a very existential question. I wasn't thinking that deep on.
Your answer can be,
Remember, June is the deadline.
that's right.
But on the other, well, I have a joke about myself. I think I made it up last year
Okay.
when I was thinking whether I want to get more into fundraising or I want to stay in grant making and philanthropy advising, which I also love.
Yes.
And I had a course on philanthropy advising. I loved it. I mean, I saw a couple of, guest lectures, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
So, so yeah, I have this job that um, I am basically better at spending the money than rather than collecting it. Maybe this is my take between, fundraising and
Right.
fundraising and grant making.
Right.
But on but on more serious note, I don't know. I mean, I was recently I'm thinking about, this literature that I really want to create and develop in Armenian, especially on philanthropy,
Awesome.
on fundraising, and on about philanthropy in general, not only specific feminist philanthropy or something, or any specific, direction in philanthropy. I really think that I'm really missing in academic writing. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking also in direction of finally pursuing maybe my PhD.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, yeah. But I think at the moment, I mean, at this point of, professional, this career-wise, wherever I'm standing, I really love this position in terms of, being connected to so many amazing people. I mean, I love every single partner that we had at the organization. I mean, I've learned so many things about them,
Yeah.
from them, about the world, about the, life and everything. I think it's
Yeah.
very fulfilling. Yeah, and I'm telling you, this is causing jealousy. Hmm. But yeah, I think I would go into research, a bit more into research and, bringing my practical expertise into research and sort of conceptualizing whatever I was doing in my work. Wow,
Yes. That's
wow.
fascinating.
Even I'm surprised at what I'm saying.
I think it's so great and admirable because you have been in the academic space, then you've been in the practical space, and you can now take that practical knowledge back into the academic side.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you. I
cool.
hope I will manage to do that.
Yes, definitely. Well, Siran, thank you so much for a really delightful conversation.
Thank you so much, Tim. It was a pleasure, and it was a really amazing platform to reflect on what I'm doing, and what I want to do as well. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
my pleasure. Thank you. And I look forward to staying in touch and seeing how your career progresses. It'll be really fun to see what you do next.
Thank you.
And for our audience, thank you for tuning in and liking the content. You'll be able to find Siran Hovhannisyan's conversation on the various platforms. People in Fundraising airs every Monday. Thanks to Luis Diaz, my 100th guest. He's at WISE and the Donor Participation Project. He's sponsoring my website, peopleinfundraising.wordifysites.com, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube. And then for people in our audience that prefer to listen to the podcasts, you can find Saran's conversation on Podbean. All of those will be airing in May or June of 2026. And thank you again, Siran, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Tim. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.